the OKC Thunder have bounced back with a win against the Pacers in game 2, and this was one that they really needed to win. Because when you have the first two home games in a finals series, you really have the chance to set the tone for that championship. Because you've got a bunch of loud, rowdy, passionate fans behind you ready to cheer you on for everything you do and wanting to will you to victory. And it creates a completely different atmosphere, different environment relative to anything we have seen before in the NBA season to this point. And you've got to be able to win at least one of those games. And for OKC, they lost game 1, but it was real close. And for the majority of that game, they were in control. But by the end of it, they let the Pacers back in. Pacers won a couple of runs, and before you know it, it was a game winner for Indiana. In this game, I thought the Thunder executed a lot better. And once again, they really needed this win. You don't lose both your home games to start off a series. That's usually not a good indicator of success. Because once again, you're in the championship, you have the chance to set the tone at home by winning these first couple games. And they couldn't get both of them, but the Thunder, they really needed to win game 2, and they did just that. And they did it in a pretty solid manner, too. Throughout this game, it felt like they were in control for the most part. Because in game 1, it felt like both offenses, they really were not playing to what they were capable of and what we had seen from them beforehand. And in this past game, OKC, they were still smothering Indiana, making Indiana uncomfortable at every turn. But the difference was OKC, they seemed to be executing a little bit better. And I think this is especially true when you take a look at the rotational guys. Because the main guy there, of course, in SGA, he is going to get his buckets regardless. He is one of the most consistent players in the entire league. Not just an explosive scoring threat, but one that you can count on every single night. And for Chet Holmgren and J-Dub, there's moments where they find their footing, moments where they don't. But overall, even if they don't have the best offensive night, you can count on someone like J-Dub to be able to impact the game in a variety of ways, from his defense to being a pretty solid playmaker, as well as his wingspan allowing for him to be able to challenge rebounds and challenge defenders. And then you get to the real rotational guys here, the likes of Alex Caruso, who had 20 points this past game. And Caruso, one of the best defenders in the NBA, hands down. And that has especially been on display this postseason. Whether it's against Nikola Jokic in the Denver Nuggets or the Minnesota big men in the likes of Julius Randle and Naz Reid, no matter what the assignment is for Alex Caruso, he finds a way to impact the game at a high level on that side of the court. And we're talking about the big men there. Those are on paper mismatches for Alex Caruso because they got a big height advantage. But that doesn't matter to Caruso because he still manages to, with his defensive IQ, find a way to make life so difficult for them. But for Caruso this past game, you can talk about his defense all that you want. But the one thing that has always kind of been the hole in Alex Caruso's game is, as great as he is on defense, that is really what defines him as a player. And that's great for Alex Caruso. But if you give him big minutes, how much can you trust him on offense? And that's not to call Caruso a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. What I mean by that is Alex Caruso is a great player because of his defensive capabilities. And when you put him out there on that court, you don't ask much of him on offense. But when he is on offense and he's having a good game, that makes him even more impactful. In this past game, he was great on that side of the court for OKC. He had 20 points on 6 for 11 shooting and 4 for 8 from beyond the arc. And so when you have someone like that who can defend at a very high level, an elite defender, and you combine that with a great offensive showing from him, that's your X factor. And that's the kind of game that can lead you to victory. Because you're going to find scoring from SGA, you're going to find scoring from J-Dub and Chet, or at least some way in which Chet and J-Dub can impact the game. For Alex Caruso, he's going to impact the game on you defensively already. But it takes it all the more over the top when you can get some scoring output from him. And that's precisely what the Thunder got. And overall, this is another 30 piece for SGA. And this is someone who has made scoring an undeniable aspect of his game. You can call it ethical, you can call it unethical, but Shea gets his points up regardless. And when you have that kind of ability, yes, it may not be fun to watch necessarily SGA taking some free throws, but there's an art to drawing contact, and he is incredible at creating contact, really contorting his body in a way which puts the defender in a precarious position. And one does not have to like it, but it's effective. But the biggest factor in the Thunder winning this game was not their offense, and they had some good contributions from Shea, from Alex Caruso, and also 18 points from Aaron Wiggins. He had a great night, 5 for 8 from beyond the arc. An incredible showing from Aaron Wiggins. This is also a really, really good rotational piece for OKC. This is a team with a lot of depth, and so with that, sometimes a guy like Wiggins can kind of be forgotten about when you're thinking of the priorities of this team. But Wiggins has been great in his role for them in this past game. He looked even better. But offense was not the defining factor for the Thunder in this game. It was their smothering defense. And I think that the Thunder defense, they had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder after game one. Because for the most part of that game, they were in control. In that first half of game one, especially, they were causing a lot of turnovers for Indiana. But by the end of it, the Pacers went on a couple of runs and they would wind up winning that game. And for the OKC Thunder, you're not just the best defense in the league, you're one of the best defenses we've seen in the past couple of decades in this modern NBA. And so when you allow a fourth quarter comeback like that, something about it, it just doesn't feel quite right. And you want to be able to correct that and make a statement the next game that it's not going to happen again, and that you're this caliber, this high caliber of defense for a reason. And that's precisely what the Thunder did this game. In that first half, the Pacers, they would go on short runs, but it was never enough to be able to really cut into that lead that the Thunder had, because the Thunder, they might go on a 19-2 run, and then after that, the Pacers might get 7 straight. But then you're still facing a pretty big deficit from what OKC just did. So even if the Pacers went on a little mini run, the Thunder were able to execute so well before that that they really weren't able. The Pacers weren't able to really get comfortable at any point, and that was especially true looking at Tyrese Halliburton. This is someone who, throughout this postseason, has looked incredible, and it's really causing a lot of people to think and reflect and look back and say, "Hey, what is the positioning of Tyrese Halliburton among the greats in the NBA right now?" Me personally, it's kind of opened my eyes. I got him as a top 15 player right about now, based off the way he's playing. But you could not tell that in this game, because Tyrese Halliburton, for the most part, especially early on, he played really, really passive in this one. I believe after the first half, he only had 3 points. And typically, if Tyrese Halliburton has a game like that where his scoring is not to the level that he usually is, you might be able to say, hey, because of the caliber of playmaker this guy is, maybe he's racking up a lot of assists. He didn't have very many of those either. Because the thing with Tyrese Halliburton is these two things kind of mutually intertwine with each other. It's, if he's having an off night scoring the ball, that creates less opportunities for him to play make for others as well, because there is less attention on him. Think of, Steph Curry and the idea of gravity, in which, if someone's a big scoring threat, there's a good chance they're going to attract a lot of attention, might get a double team on them, then that opens up an opportunity for another guy. But if Tyrese Halliburton's having an off night shooting the ball, he's going to look to pass, especially with the kind of passer that he is. So then when Hallie's not scoring, his playmaking also suffers, and you saw that in this game. And overall, he looked very, very passive in game one. He also, for the most part, didn't have a great game, but he hit that game winner at the end. And so I thought maybe that could have been a boost of confidence going into game two. It really wasn't. And overall, this was a resounding response from the Thunder, in which they lost game one due to a game winner. They never wanted to let this game get as close as that. They didn't want to make the same mistakes again. They wanted to go on dominant runs. So if the Pacers, if they went on a little bit of a run, it wouldn't be able to hurt the OKC Thunder in the long game. And that's precisely what happened. A great response by OKC. And now game three is going to be on Wednesday in Indiana now. This was a win that the Thunder really, really needed, and they executed almost perfectly. Made Indiana look uncomfortable all night. Shout out to Aaron Wiggins. Shout out Alex Caruso for stepping up big time in this game. For Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, of course, his game is so consistent, and that translated to his scoring numbers. Overall, a great comeback, or a great response from the OKC Thunder, and they are going to look to carry on this momentum into the next game. They have found a way for them to show that they can control the Pacers and not allow things to get sloppy like they did at the end of game one. And for the OKC Thunder, they've got all eyes on the NBA Finals trophy.